What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the first episode of Beer and Bandalores, the brews half of Throws and Brews. First off, I want to give Tom a shout out and a thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. So, I guess an introduction's in order first. My name's Marty. I'm with Timber Hitch Brewing. You'll see this in the back. Timber Hitch is a soon-to-be brewery here in Lebanon, Oregon. A fellow thrower, Andy Kenst, and I are in process of getting that all finalized. I've been brewing for 18 plus years. Just started out here in the garage with a small kit, just brewing 3 to 5 gallons at a time, and then now I'm working on a 50-gallon system and just hoping to go from there. What we're going to be doing here is I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite beers and hopefully spreading a little bit of knowledge about beer and the process of drinking it and brewing it and all of that. So hope you guys enjoy. This first episode is going to be based on winter beers. It's starting to get cold outside. I think today's high temp was 38, something like that. So which in Oregon for us is cold. No snow yet, but there was definitely some frost on the ground. So those temperatures are the time when you start bringing out those winter warmers. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. In the future, I'm hoping to do some episodes. We'll be looking at IPAs. We'll be looking at some Imperial Stouts. I will be walking you guys through one of my brew days and showing you the process, talking a little bit about beer and what goes into it, what some of the terms and phrases mean, and all of that kind of stuff. In the future, I'm hoping to maybe get us to do a visit to some local breweries, then maybe hitting some hop yards and things like that, and seeing just from grain to glass, basically, on what goes into the beer that you're drinking. So I'm going to try to focus on beers that people can get across the country. I'm here in Oregon. We're kind of spoiled here in our state, in that we can get a lot of amazing beers from a lot of amazing breweries. When it gets really easy to just focus on those Oregon beers. And today I've got 3 Oregon beers and 1 California beer, but I chose these beers not only because they are what the local breweries call their winter beers, but because they have a large distribution range that you should be able to get all over North America, including Canada. So if you guys have any other ideas, if you guys have any other suggestions on what kind of things we should be looking at, what I should be tasting, what I should be reviewing, then you can just put some notes down in the bottom, some suggestions on there, and we'll see what we can come up with. First one we are going to do today is a classic. It's probably one of the first that was really considered a winter ale, a winter warmer. You guys may be familiar with it. So this is Jubelale. It is by Deschutes Brewing. They are out of Bend, but they have locations all over the place. I know there's locations all over Portland, in Bend. I don't know if they have anything back east or not, but they do distribute to like 28 different states in the United States, plus a couple of provinces up in Canada as well. So for this first one, like I said, we're going to be looking at Jubelale. I'll be tasting that one here. And if you notice on many beers, there's a label here that will say IBUs and then it'll say ABV. A lot of people aren't real clear on what those things mean. So what the IBUs mean, it's International Bittering Units. And the higher that number is, the more bitter the beer is. The IPAs start off officially, I think, according to the standards, is you're looking at like around 60 IBUs. So all the beers that I've got here today are up in that range of hoppier, but the difference with these is that they're a little more balanced out with some of the malts. At least the first 2 that I'm going to be reviewing today. Something you can sip on and enjoy, but not necessarily meant for a hot day whatsoever. The other number there, the alcohol by volume, that's how much alcohol per ounce you find per that liquid volume that you're going to find. And these range on here. I think that Jubelale is the lowest ABV, alcohol by volume, on there, and it's at 6.6 7%, and then this one that we're going to be looking at here in a little bit, Bad Santa by Pelican, ranges all the way up to, I think, 7.5, I think it is. Yep, 7.5. So we're going to work our way through these, give you guys some a look at what the beer looks like in a glass, what the head looks like on it. Then I'll just be talking about the smells and things like that. One thing to remember is that the smells, the tastes, and things will change as the temperature changes. I think it's 37 degrees in here in the garage right now in the brew space, so the temperature's not going to change that much. I think that's about as cold as my fridge inside is, so it's not going to be a huge deal. But the different glasses can control what you smell, how the glass warms up, and how the beer tastes, and how you perceive the beer and its flavors and things. Also, as it warms up, the maltiness will come forward. So some of these, like the Jubelale, like the Ninkasi Sleigh'r, the temperatures will definitely change as they warm up a little bit. That maltiness will definitely come forward on it, and you'll lose some of the hoppy, the hop flavors, the bitterness, and all of that. I'm going to be using standard pint glasses for all of these. I don't ever freeze them. They just stay in my cupboard. Right now they're the same temperature as everything else in the garage, but I don't ever freeze them. Different beers do better in different shaped glasses, and I'm hoping to take that into account as I'm reviewing some of these beers. Belgian beers, some of the Saisons, the Wits, the Goldens. We'll definitely take something more like a tulip glass, and whereas like a barley wine will be more like in a goblet. Same with like a lot of the imperial stouts and things. So I will take that into account, and I will be showing you the proper glasses when I can that you would be using. But what it really comes down to is if you like it, drink it. Experiment, explore, figure out what you like. First beer, like I said, is Jubelale, and we're going to first open that up here and pour it into the glass. So, I'm just giving it a nice gentle pour, but I always finish it off because I like to make sure it has a little bit of a head there. So as you see, this one does not have much of a head, only about half a centimeter worth of head, and it's kind of a creamy coffee tan brown color to it. So, but it's dissipating quickly. Sometimes with the glass may be contributing to that. The temperatures may be contributing to that. Usually it would be a thicker head on this. I also poured it pretty gently so that I could get to drinking it and sharing with you guys so that we didn't have to wait for that head to go down. So first things first, I always stick my nose in my beer. My wife hates it. When we go out, I'll sit there and I'll stick my nose in the glass before I ever even taste it. And again, as it warms up, the smells change. But on this one, I get banana bread. But this one is full on bananas and like some clove. It just reminds me of banana bread. My mom baking banana bread growing up. A lot of malt. I don't get any hop flavors or hop aromas to it so much. Now, first drink. So one of my favorites. This is one that we watch the shelves for here at home. It's my wife's favorite. It's definitely the first tastes of it are that banana bread flavors. Definitely malt forward. Finishes off with a little bit of bitterness and some hops. They describe it as cocoa, dried fruit, toffee, roast, spice, and I would agree with those, the toffee especially. But again, I get banana bread and that sweetness, but there's also that nuttiness, that roast there. How they do that is that if you're familiar with stouts and sometimes porters, they use a malt called roasted barley. I won't go into the whole details of it, but it's just roasted barley. It's not actually malted, so you're not getting all the sweetness out of it. You're getting like coffee bean flavors out of it and things like that. So they do add some roasted barley in there to give it this dark, beautiful color. But then you also have some caramel malts, which will give it the red tones. The hops that they use, if you are familiar with the different hops, these guys tend to use a more of like the English style, the traditional styles from the European style. So it says Delta, Tettnang, East Kent Goldings, but they also mix it up with some Northwest hops like Cascade. The yeast that they use, if I remember correctly, is a British style yeast, so that definitely brings those malts forward and gives you those flavors as well. I'm just going to sip on that for a minute there. Tasty, like I said, one of my favorites. So, one of the things that I want to do in these videos as well is to tie it back into yo-yoing, because whenever I've got a yo-yo in my hand, I tend to have a beer somewhere close as well, or the other way around. So, I'm going to start doing some pairings with these. I will warn you, most of my collection of yo-yos is from One Drop. Those guys have treated me well. They're only about half hour, 45 minutes south of here, so I go and hang out down there at the shop quite a bit. And so most of my collection is One Drops because they're easily accessible for me. But that still wouldn't change what I would choose for this one. So this is pretty much just a laid back, kick back, just chill beer. It's nice for drinking in front of the fire, just being mellow and things like that. So what I would choose for this one for sure would be my Markmont Classic. One of my favorite throws to go along with one of my favorite beers. So we're going to put that one there and then move on to the next beer. Next beer we're going to do amps up the hops just a little bit. You guys may be familiar with Ninkasi. They are out of Eugene, Oregon, just down there near One Drop. They tend to like the hop forward beers, and that's kind of what they do. So this one that we're going to be looking at is called Sleigh'r. It's a winter ale, it's a winter warmer, so it's more malty, but it also puts the Ninkasi twist on it with a little more hops. So let's look at this one here. So I'm going to grab another pint glass here. For this one here, same idea. So thin head on it. About the same color, kind of a toffee butterscotchy color. I'll try to get some better pictures of that as I figure these videos out a little bit more. But a little bit slower to dissipate. It's still there. It's hard to see with the way I got the lights set up in here, but it's much slower to dissipate. Now with this one, I tend to get more cocoa on the nose there, on the aroma, but I also start to get some hops in there as well. So like I said, Ninkasi tends to be more hop forward. If you're familiar with like Tricera hops, and those beer, Total Domination and things like that, they tend to definitely be more hop forward. So let's sip on this one here. Definitely less spice on this one. I'm not getting as much cinnamon out of it. Definitely not banana bread. I think they probably use more of an American style yeast on this, which is going to be more hop forward, a little more crisp. This one definitely has some more sharp edges to it. Not as sweet on the finish. Definitely get more hops on the finish on this one. So let me get another taste of this. Another one of my favorites. This one I like to let warm up a little bit. It's not going to happen in here tonight. But it brings out some more of that cocoa, brings out some more of that roast. If you notice this one here, it's hard to tell, a little bit darker on it. They also, if you compare it to the Jubelale, it's hard to see in this light, but the Jubelale is more of a red tones to it. This is definitely darker. They do the roasted barley in this one, but they also bring in some chocolate malt, which again brings in more cocoa and stuff, which is exactly what I'm tasting on this one. This one's a little bit quicker, little bit, like I said, a little bit edgier to it. It's not as smooth and sweet on the finish. So, kind of like Paul himself, as he warms up, he gets sweeter. I'm going to suggest that when you're playing this one, that you play the Dang 2. At least that's what I'm going to suggest. One thing I forgot to mention on this one, it does adjust the hops on it. The alcohol content goes up a little bit. The ABV on this is 7.2, but technically speaking, this one should be less bitter than the Jubelale. Jubelale was 65. This one's only 60 IBUs. This one definitely drinks hoppier. You perceive the bitterness a little bit more because it doesn't have the malts to balance it out as much. Sierra Nevada. So Celebration. This is their winter release. It's a fresh hop IPA. So it's not the same as these. You don't get as much maltiness to them. It's not as malt forward. And these are using the hops straight off the vines, as fresh as they can get them. They're going into the beer, so you get some different flavors with the hops and such. So the ABV on this one is 6.8, so it kind of falls between these two here. It's about 65 IBUs as well, similar to the Jubelale, but it doesn't have that malt backbone. Now, the Chico strain of yeast that they use is the same one that I tend to use. It's California ale yeast. It tends to be more hop forward, clean. The yeast doesn't get in the way of the beer at all. Whereas the Jubelale, you're tasting a lot of the yeast flavors and the stuff from that. With this one, not so much. So this one, you're going to notice that the color is much different. So much different. You can already see that this is more of a golden color to it. The head on it is much whiter than much lighter than the ones on the other two. So if you look at the color there, now you're looking more like an IPA. So the nose on this one's going to show that as well. Yeah, full on hops. You're not getting, any of the sweetness that you do off the other two. So let's see here. Yep. So what Sierra Nevada says about this one is that they have upped the malts a little bit, so it thickens it up a little bit than their normal IPAs. But to me, this drinks more like an IPA. The one cool thing about this one is that it's only available during the winter time or the fall and winter. So this is definitely tasty. So on the nose, definitely getting some pine, some citrus, some of those stereotypical hop scents and things. Some of the classical hop scents. Yep. And you're getting that on the flavor as well. So on this one, you can tell by the color, but they don't use any roasted barley, not using any chocolate malts, things like that, and they're sticking with some just classic Northwest IPA hops. So it's all Chinook, Cascade, Centennial, all of those citrusy and pine and spicy and things like that. This is a tough choice on this one, what I would throw while I'm drinking this one. I don't know. Definitely tough. But I've been really digging this Triumph lately. And this is what I was throwing while I was drinking the Celebration last night. So still got some sharp edges to it, but it's a little more rounded out. So this might go better with one of the other ones, but I'm going to say that I would be throwing the Triumph with this beer here. Okay? So last one. This last one, I have to say, is my favorite beer to get during the winter. It's only available in the fall and winter. And if you ever get a chance to visit the brewery on the coast in Pacific City on the coast of Oregon, it is absolutely gorgeous. Looking out, the tap room looks out over the beach, out the ocean and the rocks and the beachheads and things like that. Just absolutely gorgeous. The food's amazing. Never had a bad beer, and the guys there are awesome as well. So this last one, Bad Santa. So it is actually, they don't call it a winter ale. It is a Cascadian dark ale. That's our Northwest term for a black IPA. So anywhere else in the country, it's going to be called the black IPA. Cascadian dark ales tend to bring a little bit more cocoa flavor to it as well. So it starts out as an IPA. But then you add, this one adds some what's called debittered or dehusked black malt. So it brings in some of those flavors, but it doesn't bring any of that bitterness, like chewing on a coffee bean is super bitter. This leaves that out of it. So brings some of that cocoa and things like that. But this is all IPA, but you wouldn't tell just by looking at it. So let's do this last one here. One of my absolute favorites. So you can tell just by looking at it. Just dark black even darker than something like the Jubelale. And if you notice, so a little bit carbonation, I poured it a little bit too quick, wasn't paying attention to it as much as I should be. Get rid of that. There we go. So there we go. Now that I got the head down a little bit, we can see, like if we were to compare that, so to, we got the Jubelale here, so it's still pretty dark, but this one is got a lot more red to it. And if we were to compare it to the Fresh Hop IPA, then look at the color difference between those two. This one looks more like a porter or a stout or something, but definitely doesn't taste like one. So the nose on this, like I said, citrus hops and things like that. It's just like smells like an IPA. Some citrus in there, like I said. Some little bit of pine, not as much as on the other one though. So when you drink this, one of my favorites for sure. You get the hoppiness to it, and not a lot of the cocoa, not a lot of the roasty flavors until it starts to warm up a little bit. On the finish, you get a little bit of coffee and things like that. So this one definitely, for an IPA, I like to drink this one a little bit warmer than I normally would an IPA. Super tasty, super tasty. So, on this one, for the hops, they do use more of an English hops, which is Fuggles. But along with that, let me see, you also get some Northwest hops. So you've got Willamette in there, and you've got Cascade in there. And Cascade definitely is one of those classic IPA type flavors. So you got the whole range of winter ales here. So the classic here, so definitely malt forward. You got the Jubelale, and then you've got the Sleigh'r, which is slightly darker here, slightly darker, and then lightening way up. You got the Celebration here, which is moving away from the malt forward flavors of some of these other two, and then you've got Bad Santa here from Pelican, and that just says taking it a different direction. So it's darker like these two here, but it's definitely much, much hoppier like this one. A nice, clean, sharp finish on it. No residual sweetness. It's all about hops. Excuse me. And so something like that with a nice, clean, quick finish on it. I'm going to go with the QV here. So you got the Countach 5000 QV here from One Drop, of course. You got the QV there. I got the thing to there, and then here. So even though the Triumph is technically a Dunkin', it's machined by One Drop. I think that's probably why I like it so much. So if you guys have any questions about any of these beers, if you have any other suggestions for winter warmers and winter ales and things like that, let me know. Like I said, also that these are Northwest and in Northern California beers, but they do have a pretty broad distribution, so you should be able to get these pretty much anywhere in the United States. Also, if you want more suggestions on winter warmers and those winter types of beers, you can go to Rate Beer or Beer Advocate, and they have lists by style there. And I will have Tom put the links to those down here in the comment sections down there. And so I hope you learned a little bit here. I went a little bit longer than I was anticipating, but I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you again next time. So, cheers.